right now. I think a big hand for Teresa. I know a lot of you come just to hear Teresa, and we love sitting inside listening to her. Teresa's been a part of our program for at least 12 years. I met her that many years ago at another air show, was introduced to her, was fortunate that she agreed to come to Oshkosh, and she keeps coming back. So thanks to Teresa. And while I'm saying thank you, of course, I will tell you, my name is Connie Bolin. For those of you who are here quite often, you've heard me say this same thing, that I am the founder. We've been here for 25 years now, which is pretty amazing. That we have, over the years, when I ask a owner of an aircraft or a veteran to participate in Warbirds in Review, I don't know that anybody was said, nah, I don't want to do that. They all are very proud to be here and pay tribute to our veterans and to tell you about their stories. Today, we have Ron Fagen of the Fagen Fighters WWII Museum. They have stepped in with their P-40, so you know it's nice to have a spare friend or a spare P-40, and both of those come with Ron Fagen when Butch Schroeder's airplane could not be here. So a big thank you to Ron, and along those lines, Ron and his wife Diane are the ones who are responsible for this Quonset hut behind us. Gives us a really super nice production room, green room. So thank you to Ron and Diane for that support over the years. Scott's Miracle-Gro Company, our sustaining sponsor. Thanks to Jim Hagedorn and Scott's Miracle-Gro. And you don't need to listen to me anymore. We're here to talk about this airplane. So if you'll direct your attention to the Jumbotron, the P-40.
The Aleutians, not a vacation destination then or now. More than 1,200 miles of volcanic islands stretching southwest from mainland Alaska toward Japan. It was, and is, an ugly place for human beings. Craggy mountain peaks, barren, bitter cold with high winds, snow and ice, rain, and dense fog. Few animals, no trees, and no wonder, mostly not inhabited. The attack on Pearl Harbor had alerted the United States to the Japanese threat to the American mainland. So in early 1942, just 3 months after Pearl Harbor, construction began on an Alaska highway to carry troops and war materiel to Alaska from the lower 48 states. The road would stretch across much of Western Canada. In June 1942, that small Japanese fleet attacked 2 of those godforsaken islands, Attu and Kiska. Over the next 14 months, the 2 sides battled to a bloody standstill with heavy losses on both sides. The human cost for American troops in proportion to the number of troops engaged was second only to American losses at Iwo Jima. Over those months, as many as 6 fighter squadrons, mostly P-40s, but also P-38s and P-39s, were based in Alaska and brought the fight to the Japanese, all the way to Attu and Kiska. Again, losses were heavy. 45 planes were lost in combat, another 185 were lost to weather and accidents. many pilots died. But the only World War II combat on American soil was over. Just a few days after that original attack on Attu and Kiska, American sea and air attacks overwhelmed the Japanese fleet at Midway, sinking 4 of its aircraft carriers. It was the turning point in the Pacific War.
All right, well, what about that, ladies and gentlemen? Well, thank you for being here. My name is Ray Fowler, and of course, the 2 stars for the day, Mr. Ron Fagan, and here, which is going to talk about the P40, and his right-hand man, Brandon Duell, which is involved with the restoration. So, you guys have a seat. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks for braving the heat for this. So obviously the P-40 is an incredible airplane. So we're going to talk about this, the airplane, and kind of talk to Ron and what got him involved with this airplane and the variety of other airplanes that they have. So Ron is no stranger, obviously, to Oshkosh and has brought a lot of airplanes up here over the years. Incredibly involved with everything you see here. So I'll start off with Connie Bolin. So Connie Bolin is, started this with very meager means, and it has grown into quite a program. And it couldn't happen without people like Ron and the generosity of his family. But to the P-40, I think as a kid, everybody remembers the shark teeth on a P-40. And I was fortunate enough to get to meet and be close friends with Tex Hill, which is one of the most famous AVG aviators in the P-40. So unbelievable to get to know him. And he was actually, many, many years ago, got to come out onto this stage and to talk about flying the P-40. So unfortunately, those folks are not around anymore. But now we have all the custodians like Ron that keeps these airplanes flying. So Ron, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Brandon. So I guess the first question, Ron, and by the way, Ron is a close friend, and I've had the chance to spend many evenings with him talking about Warbirds and why he does what he does. But so first off, P-40. So I just asked you before we stepped out, why the P-40? Because it wasn't your first Warbird, but it was almost your first Warbird, correct?
It was. By the way, I know Ray so well, he has his own room at our house.
Yeah, I do enjoy staying there. So,
but okay. So anyway, my first Warbird was a P-51 Sweet Revenge, which is parked over here, and we've had that for 34 years or whatever, and it's looked the same ever since.
Yeah.
But then, but I was reading Trade a Plane, if you want the story. I was reading Trade a Plane at my folks' during Thanksgiving, and it come across an ad that says a new restoration P-40 for sale, and it was like $150,000, and I'm thinking, holy moly, $150,000. So I called the Canadian up and says, I'll take it. Sight unseen, I'll take it. Well, I didn't know much about P-40s at all, except for a little bit in books and magazines. And I said, I can't believe it, a restored P-40 for $150,000. A lot of money, but I thought, what a deal. So I bought this airplane on site, okay, or not looking at it, and I get a call from my friend Jerry Beckett. Said, "Ron, you didn't buy that P-40 in Canada, did you?" And I said, "Well, yes, I did." He says, "Why did you do that? You should have called me." It's interesting. So anyway, so I bought this P-40, but it wasn't a real. It was parts of it was a P-40, but the tail was a T6 tail. It was a wild-looking machine. The only thing looked like a P-40. It's kind of the tiger mouth painted out in the right colors, everything. But that's about the only thing that was P-40. So that's how I got into the P-40 business, and that's how we got into the restoration of P-40s, because eventually, of course, we had to
learned what you wanted instead of what you got.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, So me being naive about P40s and that it's got us in the P40 business. But anyway, there's a lot of things about Warbirds I don't know. I learn as we go.
So for everyone here, how many people have been to Granite Falls and gone to the Fagan Museum over there?
Okay.
So I see quite a few hands up.
Yeah.
So in Granite Falls is one of the top museums in the country. So a little bit off the beaten path, and I'll let Ron tell you kind of why he built the museum in Granite Falls. But it is an incredible collection of airplanes. It is one of the top flying collections in the country. It is certainly worth going to see that. So Ron not only figured out the P40, but now they've brought, I think, 3 Grand Champion P40s to Oshkosh. So they've been judged, and they've gone home with the top trophy as Grand Champion. This is an amazing airplane, which I'm not going to steal any of Brandon's thunder on to talk about this airplane as well. But Granite Falls is also has kind of turned itself into one of the top restoration shops in the country for Warbirds. So they not just P40s, but they restore quite a few airplanes. They've got P51 they're doing now. The Helldiver that's out here was brought last year, and that's one of their latest restoration airplanes. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But Ron, so you tell me, your father was an infantryman in World War II, right?
That's right.
Stormed the beaches of Normandy.
That's right.
Which is unbelievable. So I guess tell me, did your father have? Did you know what your father did in World War II, or how did you really find out that you grew up with a war hero?
He landed in Normandy on Utah Beach, but he never really talked about it until the last 2 years, and he died at 92. But yeah, he fought all the way across France, and the war ended with him at the Battle of the Bulge, and then he came home, and after he spent a stay in the hospital, and then he got his pilot's license on the GI Bill right away, and we've always had airplanes in our family ever since.
Could he ever imagine what you have built in Granite Falls? I mean, it is, words do not describe. Obviously, this evening, go on social media, look in what they have in Granite Falls. The latest they just built is the Navy hangar, which is unbelievable in itself, and it's worth mentioning for anyone that wants to take the trek. I think it's like 24 days from now. 16, 17, is that the date?
Yeah.
So the 16th
right
and 17th is they're having an all-Navy 250th celebration for the Navy and Marines, and we'll pretty much have 2 of every aircraft that flies sitting on that ramp to go fly in.
Right.
In some cases, more than 2. So that is worth coming to see as well. So. But anyway, on to the P40, what we came to talk about. So just the broad strokes, obviously, the P40 was mostly 30s technology of what you look at. So it was well outpaced and outperformed by the adversaries by the time it was really proven in combat. And we'll talk a little bit about it here, and then, like I said, we'll make Brandon, since he's the expert on the airplane, really get into the weeds. But unlike the P51 that you see out there, this airplane has an Allison engine on it. So it was well underpowered, and again, part of the systems that flew the airplane with that engine and this, this configuration of airplane, particularly whenever the AVG, which flew against the Japanese fighters, again, they had to adopt tactics that would allow the airplane to be able to shoot down those airplanes, and really, they didn't want to get much into a turning war with them for that reason. once the P-51, it is a quantum leap in performance over this airplane here to go fly. So, but it is such an amazing airplane to go fly, and it's so iconic. Certainly the way the gear goes up and down, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. So, so Brandon, why don't you tell me about this particular airplane, which this actual airplane has combat history, correct?
Yeah, it has combat history with the Russians, actually. And during the war, for those of you who don't know, there was a program called the Lend-Lease program. And through the Lend-Lease program, they basically took and supplied our allies with equipment, aircraft, tanks, different things like that. And so this P-40 went over to Russia through the Lend-Lease program. And it ended up in the Murmansk area of Russia, Archangel nowadays, I believe it's called, northern Russia. Pretty cold, barren area. Anyway, and I don't remember the fighter group it was stationed with, but it was out on patrol with another P-40. And during the patrol, they ran across some BF-109s and tangled with them a little bit. As far as I know, neither side shot down any. We didn't shoot down any BFs, or the Russians didn't shoot down any BFs, and they didn't get our P-40s. But during that battle, they got lost, couldn't find their way back to their base, and so they flew around till their fuel ran out, ditched it in a marshy area, and the plane sat there until early 90s, I believe. Both were kind of pulled out, one of them by the Russians, the other one by an American group. And let's see, so this is the plane that was pulled out by the Russians. It sat in a Russian museum for a while, and then eventually, through different sales, worked its way to the United States, to Georgia, and then Ron ended up buying it from there. And the other plane actually was recovered by the American group, and that went to a gentleman named Ken Hake. And Ken is the gentleman who kind of started the restoration business that ultimately he decided to sell and Ron purchased. And once the wrecks he had, which included the plane that was recovered by his group, and then this one, we're in the shop together, and we started doing history research. We found out that they actually were the two sister ships that flew together during that little skirmish with BF-109. So kind of neat little history there with this plane.
Yeah, that's incredible. And Ron, I was going to ask you about flying the airplane, because obviously you've spent a lot of time behind this airplane and just flew the airplane over for the show here. So you tell me, as far as flying characteristics of the airplane,
Okay.
like what don't you like about a P-40?
I love everything about it.
Well, what doesn't it do
No,
as well as a P-51? How about that?
Okay. Anyway, P-40 is great. And 2 years ago, I told Rhonda out here that's in charge of parking airplanes, I said, well, Rhonda, I think this is my last trip flying a fighter to Oshkosh. I'm getting pretty doggone old. I'm looking around, I'm the oldest guy here. And I said, so I think I'll probably bring a trainer or something next time. And then Connie called up and said, Ron, our P-40 canceled for the show. Bring your P-40. Well, you can't tell Connie Bolins no. So here I flew it again, brought it here. And it's a great flying airplane. Yeah, the controls are very light. Great. It's fun to do aerobatics with. I mean, they're just wonderful. And they won't kill you quite as easy as a P-51. And so I feel very safe in the P-40. And I'm an old mechanical guy, so I like all the mechanical stuff in it, I understand that. And we took us a while to figure out the brakes. The brakes aren't like wonderful, but Brandon figured out how to make them pretty good. That's good. I finally learned how to do a good crosswind landing to figure that out. And but actually, I think I like almost everything about the P-40, Ray. I kind of like it.
So one thing that's interesting about the airplane, so the scoops you see on the front, so the two bigger holes that are on the top there, they go to the radiator, and then the bottom one goes to the oil cooler. So I would say definitely at Oshkosh, particularly whenever you get stuck in a line of airplanes, sometimes the P-40 is not the airplane to get to. So I'm sure you've done it where you get literally when you're just feet from where you're parking the airplane and you have to shut it off because it will overheat on the ground.
Yeah.
And have you had it, this airplane, have you had to shut off before you got to the chocks with it before?
I have. I've done that many times right here. But the Aleutian starts up very easily. But what I usually do, you're supposed to wait until you get to 50 C with the oil temperature before you run it up and take off. But my method is I get the oil temperature to 40 C, do my startup or my
Run up.
right there on the spot, and I'm going down the runway. And it worked pretty good if you're lucky enough to get where you got to go to take off. But that's my, I push it a little bit and go a little bit early, but it worked pretty good for me.
And I'm sure when they started combat airplanes, you know, they pretty much joined straight into the fight with them and didn't have a lot of taxi times with it. And I've heard the stories with people literally putting ice into the radiators to give you a little extra taxi time. Some of the other airplanes have been modified. They have a spray bar, so they're actually able to water inject air down, or water rather, into the radiators, so they can have almost unlimited ground time. And that is one of the advantages of the P-51. Assuming you don't have a tailwind, it's got a very good scoop in the bottom. It's got a good radiator, so for the most part, you don't get yourself in a position where you have to shut the airplane right before you either take off or right before you come and park the airplane, which is pretty unique on it. So Brandon, so tell us about some of the restoration work on the airplane. So what is unique? Like, do you enjoy restoring a P-40 over some of the other airplanes, or?
Yeah, I really do. The P-40, you know, the P-51. There's a lot of shops out there that do P-51 work, and you can still buy quite a few of the original parts for P-51. And then if you can't buy it, there's shops that are making it somewhere generally. With the P-40, there's not a lot out there. And when Ron bought Ken Hake's collection of parts and the stuff Kenny had made, he basically bought one of the largest collections of P-40 parts in the world at that time. And so, you know, that helped out quite a bit. But I still enjoy the challenge of some of the stuff we have to hand make and work through and figure out. And then, you know, the P-40 being a mid-30s design, it was based on the P-36, which was essentially a radial engine P-40. It was such an early design. They were just getting into all-metal fighters back then. You know, they were transitioning from rag-wing biplanes into, you know, all-metal fighters. And the engineers really didn't understand as much about mass production and just designing with all aluminum as they did by, say, 1942, 43, when the P-51 and some of the later designs were kind of on the drawing boards. So the P-40 is neat in that it's kind of overbuilt, and, you know, it's been being a mid-30s design. In order for it to keep up with fighters that were coming out later production, they did a lot of modifications as it went along. And so it's just real neat because it has a lot of history of changes through the models and just a lot of fun stuff to work with. The gear on the P-40, it's a little different than a lot of fighters, especially Army Air Corps fighters. Most Army Air Corps fighters, kind of like the P-51, fold inward. With the P-40 gear, it actually folds back into the wing, and because of that, the gear actually has to rotate as it goes back in. And so that kind of adds a little bit of complexity, and with 30s technology and trying to figure that stuff out, they really went kind of an odd way with that. There's some interlocking gears and stuff like that kind of rotate the cylinder, but it's just one of those little odd complexities that, you know, is fun to work with and fun to figure out as you're restoring one of these aircraft.
That's outstanding. So, Ron, tell me, do you have any favorite P-40, particularly for some of the veterans? Did you get a chance to meet Tex Hill?
I sure did. I got to meet him twice right here.
That's great.
And that was a lot of fun. And Him and his wife, Macy, are great people and just normal people. You could talk to them. It was wonderful, and so I enjoyed visiting those people.
Part of Ron and his wife Diane, which unfortunately Diane is not here. We wish she was here, but she had some issues back home and is not here with us today, and usually would be. But it's amazing what they do for veterans, worldwide. I think the latest one you did was the 100-year-old that went and flew in your Helldiver, correct?
Yep.
So,
well, you were the pilot.
Yeah, and it's so amazing to put those together for your event. So I want to talk a little bit about the event coming up here in 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
So don't you have 2 or 3 100-year-old veterans that are going to be at that event?
Yeah, Don McPherson was coming here for a Friday deal, but he decided that he's 103 guys and girls, 103. He drives from his farm every morning in Adams, Nebraska, into town for coffee. Then once a week, he drives in 60 miles down the interstate by himself, downtown Lincoln, to see his doctor. 103 guys. And so he's going to be at our event. We were hoping he's going to be here Friday, but he thought he just better keep it to one event. But yeah, and then we have several other 100-year-olds will be there. But yeah. I'll mention one other thing about the P-40. You can fly a P-40. They have the world's best heater in a Warbird. I flew this airplane 20 below zero, and I didn't freeze to death. So it's amazing why it's got such a great heater, but that's good. In Minnesota, it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, we want Brandon's group wants to. Anybody, if you know if anybody wants to buy a P-40, we have 3 really good projects left, and we could go 4 and 5, being more creative. But we have enough stuff to do 3 easy, and they are an easy airplane to fly. I kid you not. I love them.
Well, it is amazing. There's several airplanes that are being restored right now, and actually, thanks to both of you for subbing in for this. So a beautiful P-40 restoration was supposed to make the show here. For it, Butch Schroeder, Craig Davidson, they were supposed to come and speak to it and for the event, and their airplane will be here next year and be judged. So hopefully you'll get to learn about their airplane as well. So. Right. But it's amazing that you actually were able to step in to work with them.
And I wanted to say, my wife Diane's been with me, us together here, zillions, it seems like many, many years, and she's actually said, Ron, you go, we got a sick dog at home, an older lab, and she said, I got to take care of the dog. So that's why Diane is not here, but she's responsible for a lot of stuff for our museum. She makes the museum cool. And adds the touch that we don't see. So anyway, she would love to be here to see all of you. And I want to thank all you people that have been to our museum. Thanks for coming. We want you to come often as you can and see us.
Outstanding. Well, we know it is awfully hot, and we appreciate the crowd here to come out and see this. We're going to stick around a little bit around the airplane to answer any questions as well after the event. We're going to actually open it up to the crowd to see if you have any questions specifically for Ron or Brandon, and then we'll close this out. So there's got to be some good questions that somebody has about the airplane. So anybody?
No.
I was
right up there.
Just curious if you could talk about the top speed, the cruising speed, and just some of the things you're able to do as you're flying it.
On the P-40? Yeah. Well, when I'm flying in formation with a Mustang, I always got to throttle way back. They can't keep up to a P-40.
Not true.
But I go cross country about 230, 220 knots, pretty comfortably, and 230, and so it's not slow. It's very comfortable. Plenty of room too, so it's nice.
Do I have another question? No. There we go.
Hold on just a second. Yep. Excuse me. He was first.
It's just a comment. My father flew most fighters in the Second World War, except the P-38, and he said the P-40 was the nicest flying plane he ever flew.
There's a guy I agree with.
Good afternoon. Would you please discuss the gearing arrangement, and I think it would be a gearing arrangement, where the main mounts rotate 90 degrees when you command retraction?
Sure. We'll let Brandy, you can talk to that. And
Yeah, so basically the gear has a pivot that the lower gear leg is actually free to swivel in. And on top of that gear leg, there's a bevel gear, and it meets up with another bevel gear that's up inside the wing. And those two bevel gears, so the linkage pulls about midway down the strut, and as that linkage pulls the strut backwards, those bevel gears mesh and roll the gear 90 degrees as it comes back and tucks up into the wing. And so it basically, it's not very complex, but at the same time, there's a lot going on right in there that you just have to make sure everything is rigged correctly and lined up correctly.
And it's a pretty archaic system, right, Ron? So when you're directing the hydraulics, so you can talk to the, like when you pull the gear up and on the stick. So talk about when you pull the gear up and down, the procedure.
Well, bring the gear selector up position, then it's got an electric switch on the stick, and you just pull that and then start the electric hydraulic motor, and it pumps the hydraulic fluid through the system, and the hydraulic cylinders bring the landing gear up, and then when the gear is up, then you just check the hand and reach over and on the hand pump and make sure it's firm, and then you bring your gear selector back to neutral to trap it right there, and then you're available to put your flaps down after that. But the system works really good. Brandon's got it figured out just wonderfully. And by the way, if you ever saw a P-40 going by the Golden Gate Bridge flying under it, probably that was him, not me.
That was not me.
That was Ray.
So
anyway, there's a photograph running around out there. That was him, yeah.
Not true. Especially if you work for the FAA. That was
Yeah.
So actually, we talk about the 30s technology, which is so amazing. When you look at some of the 40s airplanes that are so hydraulic and so complex with the lines, this one literally, when you want to put the flaps down and you move the flap gauge and you squeeze that, it is just directing hydraulic fluid when you turn that pump on to bring the flaps up or down. The entire mechanism for that gear and for the flaps all run to one control right in the bottom.
Yeah.
Right by your left leg. So you're literally manually selecting that gauge, and you're just telling the airplane, do you want to put hydraulics to the gear or do you want to put hydraulics to the flap, which is so amazing for that. So any more questions?
Due to the narrow mains on this, how's the ground handling?
Well, it took me about 15 years to learn how to land a P-40 in a crosswind. And I got it figured out finally. I should have just asked him, but anyway, it's good if you got there's no problem ground handling this airplane. But if you got a good crosswind, is what I typically do is I keep the tail up as long as I possibly can, and so I can steer down the runway with the rudder, and then when it's completely done, the tail goes down, and you can land a pretty good doggone crosswind with this airplane, with that technique. And other people have different techniques, but it worked pretty good for me.
I will say before we get to the question, I was flying a civilian airplane through Granite Falls one time, and I'm not exaggerating, though. It had to be 40+ knot winds. And before we got there, somebody jumped me in a P-51, and I'm like, who would be flying in these kind of winds? And it was Ron Fagan out flying. So he definitely has got it figured out when it comes to flying and flying Warbirds.
Every day is a good day to fly.
So were these Lend-Lease planes built any differently, for example, with metric gauges?
For the most part, they had a standard setup in them. As they went out the factory, there were a few little differences. Strangely enough, they actually, like all the Lend-Lease that went to Russia, they would still paint the American insignia on it. And then when it got over to Russia, they would just paint out the blue paint over it with the green, and then they'd paint the star red instead of white, and that was, you know, their insignia. There were instrument changes that they did there, a few of them, but most time they just, you know, their pilots were trained. Okay, this is the P-40. This is what it comes with from America. So, you know, this is how you read it, type stuff.
Another thing is, yeah, I only use about 20 degrees, 30 degrees of flap on a real crosswind day. I don't use full flap. So it takes a little more runway, but that's part of the technique.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I was just wondering what the plane's record was as a fighter in China, how lethal it was against the opposition there, and how many kills and so forth, how well it did in that theater.
Wow, I don't know the total numbers of that. Obviously, they were credited and, you know, pretty much paid per kill. So, you know, the AVGs were like mercenaries, but very successful. But I think that'd have to be a question, unless you know the numbers.
No, I don't know numbers. But you know, the AVG they developed the technique to take on the Zeros, and Ray may have mentioned this, but you know, and they really had it down very well. Claire Chenault, you know, really was tactical in how he planned stuff, and they really figured that out early on how they needed to attack the Zero. And of course, Claire even went back to the United States and tried to tell, you know, different branches of the Army Air Corps, you know, different ways that they could be approaching, you know, these enemy fighters, and try to explain their tactics to them. They were kind of slow to incorporate them, and so when we actually did get into the war, their kill ratio was much higher than our highly trained pilots. You know, his group of volunteers, their kill ratio was a lot higher than our highly trained pilots, because he developed those techniques, and eventually the Air Corps brought those techniques in, and they were more successful. But I know they were quite a bit more successful than the Army Air Corps initially.
All right, probably have time for one more, and then we will close this out. One more question? Yes, sir, up on the top.
If you could stand, please.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to your original P-40, the one with the weird tail.
Oh, well, if you want to see it, you can see the wings on the fuselage and the cowling on it, all complete, hanging from Warren Peach's hangar in Minot, North Dakota. All we did is strip off some original parts and kept them, and we gave the airplane to Warren so he can look at it every day from the ceiling.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. Ron, I want to thank you for everything you do for Warbirds in Review. Brandon, thank you so much for coming out. Also, to Ed and Connie Bolin for obviously what they built here and letting us all get up close and personal to airplanes, and really give everyone access to airplanes that not everyone would have access to otherwise. And please come out and answer questions. And most importantly, is 15 minutes, and this is thanks to Ron and Diane and their generosity. They are starting a Bud Anderson Memorial here. The phase 1 is next door. They are having at 2 o'clock, so in 15 minutes they're going to have that just right on the other side of here, and you'll see that's where they're starting phase 1 of the garden, and it'll be a whole Bud Anderson memorial. And he was a triple ace, and we miss him greatly. He flew the old Crow, and I'm sure some of you heard Bud Anderson speak over the years here. So please join us for that. Thank you so much for coming out.
Test 1, 2. Just gonna keep testing the mic, see if it's working. Levels are good.
Test.
Put 11 up this morning. That's a lot. Yeah, 11. Two of your airplanes were up there flying. I don't know. These guys they got it figured out.
They gave me this mic, and I'm not going to give it up too fast.
I was just stealing the mic out of his hand yesterday.
Yeah, well, you can, same thing. You can go back and forth, you know? You want to have a little more.
What are you going to say?
I'm going to be surprised.
You're going to be surprised? You weren't here, like, when he said, basically, I feel sorry for the Japs. The Japs had no choice but to attack us at Pearl Harbor. Did you ever heard of this nonsense?
We'd taken all the scrap steel, and we'd taken all the oil and everything all over the globe so that there was no...
Doesn't he have American flags and everything?
There was no...
Doesn't he hate Toyota?
He loves Nissan,
Necessity makes strange men.
Shit, done.
I know. That's what I told him.
Test. Hello?
What's up, Bob?
How soon are you going to get started? Can I have everybody's attention, please? First of all, I'd like to have my directors, the Warbird Board directors, stand right up here. They got blue shirts on, so you can talk to them and see them and everything else. The reason that we're here today is to dedicate the Bud Anderson Memorial Garden. And we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you came. And let's see. I don't see. Anyway, so I'm going to turn the mic over to Connie Bolin. My name's Mike Anderson. I'm the president of Warbirds of America, and these are the directors. And they work hard, and then Connie Bolin. So I'm going to turn this over to Connie Bolin, and we have some very, very exciting news that we want to share with you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank all of you who are here. Most of you know Bud Anderson, knew Bud Anderson. And we have a photographer here going, move over, move over. Act like you like each other, directors, will ya? You have a lot to be proud of in the improvements that we have made to the Warbird area. Bud Anderson was a tremendous friend to Warbirds. He loved being at Oshkosh Air Venture, and we all loved him. So it was, the thing to do was to establish a project, a fund in honor of Bud and the very humble beginnings you see right here in this garden. So we'd like to, today, we're here to dedicate the garden and the small museum behind us, which is a work in progress. Beyond that, we plan a Bud Anderson Operations Center that will support our members. We will have more meeting rooms. We have a larger briefing room planned and other things that will support the project here that Bud, again, supported Warbirds and did his part to keep them flying. So with our dedication to making this project a reality, Bud's legacy will carry forward for all these years to come. So I thank you to the board members. I don't have their money in hand yet, but I have a commitment from this board to be a 100% participation to support this movement. So guys, you better come through, because I just said you were coming through, and I know they will. So that is a wonderful thing. I have to thank Fred Telling, who is our board member. Fred came up with a challenge when we first talked about this, said, okay, I'm going to give this amount of money, and that amount was $50,000, and I challenge my friends to meet that challenge. So I will go to Jim Tobel, I think is right here in front of me. Jim Tobel said, okay, I'll step up. I think with Shelley's blessings for sure. You got to know that. So Jim Tobel was our second $50,000 donor. My friend Jack Roush and Jim Hagedorn over here, they stepped up and said, yes, we're in. Jack doesn't need to come up here. No. You're going to step right up here in front. Hey, we're working now. I'm just telling Jack Roush where to go. You cannot. Oh, look at him. No, Jack. No. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Who tells Jack Roush no? You want my microphone now?
Just have the microphone.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. Let me finish recognizing your friend Bob Bull, that I think you sold your airplanes to, but then you coerced him or challenged him, and he came up with $50,000. And then Rod Lewis joined in. So that gave us our seed money, which was a really big seed start, our initial sponsors. And okay, he's looking at me. Give me the microphone.
Yeah, I was behind my own leg. I never got a chance to shout at the mic. And I had some things I wanted to have. The brooch that not popular last year when they were particularly doing. I said that the people in North Americans and the Western Europeans didn't give the Japs much of a chance, but to get the resources they need. The whole Far East rich of resources were all organized by the empire building countries to make it possible for them to grow. So the Japanese were an emerging primitive people, resources to join the industrial age, and they had to fight us to get them. And I would have been on the same side of the fight that I'm on today for the Western European and the North American interests, but I wasn't given a chance. I was born the day after Jimmy Doolittle went into Tokyo, and my opinions hadn't been formed yet. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, then, that would be the interest. I'd be interested in seeing some editorial done on why the Japanese went to war and what their justification was. But that'll be fun to see. The other thing is that what was the other thing? We're paying tribute to our friend Bud Anderson, and his generation did so much to set up the economy for us to build on in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. The American economy was something that's benefited everybody that's in the audience today by providing resources, cheap energy, and other things to do to build strong economies. And Bud Anderson and his generation made it possible for my dad and for me following that to build an industrial strength that we couldn't have had unless we'd won the war. But the untold story is how much this generation had created opportunities for the economy, that world-leading economy that survived the war, and we made it prosperous the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I'd like to talk some more about that when it's time.
We'll find another day to do that, and we'll recognize it. Thank you, Jack, for all your support and your pressure on the other people, or your influence on the other people. And as I look around the audience here, I see other people who have made substantial commitments to support this project. And again, this is a project in process. We don't know the exact floor plan for the larger Bud Anderson Operations Center that we will build, but we can get over the top with your help. And we as a board, and I thank all the board for their support, promise you that it will serve our members, and Bud will be proud because he cared about our members. He will be pleased for the support he can lend with his name to support our project to keep them flying. We have today, I think some of our directors, speaking of influencing friends, I think we have directors who have worked on one particular gentleman, maybe brought him around to thinking that we have a lot of good things going on here, and that is so come here, and we do a lot of good things in this 1 week. So I'm pleased to announce again that a lot of our directors brought another new person into our war community. That is Jared Isaacson, who has stepped up to say that he will support this project. Jared, would you like to come forward and say something? You're more, come on, dude. Thank you, Jared. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I'll just be very brief. I literally just found out an hour ago about this project. General Bud Anderson's American hero. We absolutely should be preserving his legacy. Can't think of a better spot to do it than here at EA Warbirds. So I said I'm happy to cover the remaining months. I can guarantee this gets done. And hopefully it's the first of many more exciting projects. I'm eager to be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And I will add on to that. And again, thank you so very. No donate to what we think is the target, because you can build, anybody around here who probably has several vehicles or building or whatever, you go, oh, now I have it. Now I have to maintain it. So our project is designated funds to the Bud Anderson Memorial Fund. Any excess of what it takes to build this building that we have in mind at this moment, the excess will go into an endowment fund invested with an advisor, a financial advisor, so that we will be able to sustain and continue on with our Warbird projects. This is not just a one and done. And Fred Telling, I think, who was our initial, I'm in for this much, you guys match it. Fred would like to say a word or two.
Well, thank you, Connie. As many of you know, because of Connie's vision, this whole Warbirds in Review is now in its 25th year. She's always been a person of vision, commitment, and it's grown to the point where I'd follow her in any project, any time, and this is no different. So I was pleased and impressed a year ago how many people jumped on to help, and I'm going to say today that, Connie, I'd like to make an additional $50,000 pledge to your effort to go forward, and this time I'll offer it as a challenge, but the reality is I don't want to put any of those fine gentlemen at risk. But if they want to join us, that's going to get us even closer to our goals for the future, because I cannot think of better opportunity to not only recognize General Anderson, but frankly recognize through him all of the many veterans who served throughout the wars, because this is not just about Bud. This is about unselfish service, commitment, and in the same way that, as Connie described this building will be a reflection not only of that for our veterans, led by, in this case, or highlighting General Anderson, but also to all the volunteers and support activities that are required to make this event happen year in and year out. And we've sort of overgrown our resources, and we need more space, more facilities to make this organization. Well, I already think it's the best that we have in EAA, so I may get some flack for that, but that's my view and I'm sticking to it. So, Connie, my pledge to you, another $50,000, call on it anytime you want it. All the best. And thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And as Fred said, not to put anybody on the spot, but see me later. If you got money you want to get rid of, I'm happy to take it. We have set up this advisory board to come up with a plan that will benefit our members and our veterans and honor these people as we have always done, and help the people keep these airplanes flying. Where else can you go other than in the Warbird area and see the Mustangs, the Corsairs, the Liaison? We are the place to be. And the P-40s. I'm sorry, Mike. Yes, the P-40. Where's Ron's back there too? So all of them. There's no bad airplane, and there's certainly no bad Warbird. We pay tribute to our military history, and I'm very pleased to be a part of something that will honor my good friend and your good friend, General C.E. Bud Anderson. His family wrote us a note not too long ago. We have brochures inside that give you some information about what the family says and their plans. His family, for example, plans to send us Bud's footlocker from World War II. So that will be on display. But as Fred said, in addition to Bud, we will honor other veterans in our projects here. Do I have anybody else that would like to say anything? Are we done? Oh, I should not have said that. Okay, so here's Hagedorn.
No, I don't have a lot to say. I would say Bud Anderson was a friend and a true fighter pilot, and that says a lot. And this dude, thank you so much. Welcome.
Yeah, the Warbird community is is a great community. We are a community of friends. We may not see each other but once a year, but we are a community of friends who support each other and support our veterans. So I thank you to all of you. The museum is open, and we have the ability to take funds, cash, check, whatever, but I have to close with a person who's probably not going to be happy with me, but this would not have happened. You would not be standing in this garden and have it look as nice as it does right now and in the museum if it weren't for Kyle Guyett. Kyle, would you stand up? Kyle does everything for Warbirds in Review, all the details, and makes us all look good in Warbirds in Review. A few months ago, I said, Kyle, it would be really nice if we got the museum and the garden together, and I know it's a lot. She accepted that challenge, and we have a beautiful start to what will go forward and serve Bud's legacy forever and the Warbird mission forever. So yay, Kyle. Mike, did you want to close, or you have anything? Close quick. Yeah, close quickly. It's hot.
It's hot. We're going to close. Thank you again so much for coming, being a participant here. We appreciate everybody. Again, just like Connie said, how we can make the member experience better is to continue to make our area better, and we appreciate you and everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
Could you turn this back? I have a special person right here that, yes, I almost forgot her. How can I forget Teresa? Teresa had a favorite song of Bud Anderson's, so that I would like for you, as you mingle and depart, I would like to have Teresa sing that song.
When I started here, Bud came up to me and said, "You have to sing this song anytime I'm around." And I even went for his 100th birthday and sang it for him. So this is just my last, this was always the last song that I had for him, and it was his favorite. It's "I'll Be Seeing You." I'm just going to sing a little part. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. Thank you.
Families, forged memories, and pushed ourselves farther than ever before. We were made for grass, to care for, nurture, and cultivate. We've always made sure to have a patch of our own, because there's no greater feeling than being on the grass. Except leaving it.
On January 17, 1942, Chief of U.S. Army Air Forces Henry H. Hap Arnold assigned the responsibility for one of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's highest military priorities, a payback attack on the Japanese home islands, to one of the most famous aviators in history, Lieutenant Colonel James H. Doolittle. In a mere 66 days, Doolittle had identified the airplanes that could be modified to launch a carrier-based attack some 450 miles from Japan, had assembled the volunteer crews, modified the Mitchell B-25s to give them the range to reach a safe haven in free China after the raid, and accomplished the mapping and charting the crews would require. Now on March 23, 1942, Doolittle assembled the men who had been training for the mission at their training base near Fort Walton Beach, Florida. It was time to fly the planes west to the Sacramento, California Air Depot for final adjustments. As he had before, Doolittle offered any man who wanted to the ability to leave the highly dangerous mission without recrimination. None did.
You don't take off on a mission like this without a light at the end of the tunnel. We all thought that somehow we'd get out of it.
Well, in the training in Florida, we were always flying just above the water all the time, right down over the river valleys and between the trees. And then we head stopped all the way across the United States to Alameda, down as low as we could fly.
Yeah, I think Bill asked me if I would go as his co-pilot, and I said, well, of course.
Somewhere along the line, they interject the thing that it was a suicide mission. I don't think it was any more of a suicide mission than the guys taking off from England, going over to Germany. It was just signs of the times, and that's the way it had to be. And that's the way it was, and that's the way it was accepted.
I'm Gary Sinise, and this is Missions That Changed the War.
To me, lawn service is a scam.
There's no lawn service for you.
Unfortunately, I don't trust them very much because I don't know what they're putting down.
Nobody's going to pay attention to your lawn like you do.
It's the whole point of owning a home is that you maintain your own lawn.
We've taken care of this lawn from day one.
I take pride in it, and when people tell me it looks good, it makes me feel even better.
Do you use a lawn service?
Absolutely not. I have you.
I know what I'm putting down when I put Scott's down. I'm putting down a great product.
STS-27 was my third launch, and it was only the second launch after the Challenger accident. Well, I will never forget, we maneuvered the arm, and Mike Mullane was my arm operator, so he moved the arm over there, and we brought up the television image of the right wing, and I looked at what I was seeing, and I said to myself, we are gonna die.
You know, plants aren't so different from us, are they, Ryan?
Plants need food like people need food.
And that's right, and they do tell us what they need, like this really good organic plant food from Miracle-Gro.
It's just as important as soil, sunlight, and water.
Ryan the philosopher. And you know what this one is telling me? She needs a spicy martharita and a lounge chair by the pool. These peppers look hangry, Ryan. Eat them, don't just stand there. You know, we've started this controversy about whether this is dirt or soil.
Everyone's all up in arms about it.
So what do you call it?
You say dirt, I say soil, you say soil.
When do I say soil? I never say soil.
You just did.
There was a day in 2011 when I'm told I was the highest person on Earth. Literally. Feet.
Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
It was a voyage to the edge of infinity. For a few minutes that I will remember for the rest of my life, I stared through the frost formed on the canopy of our aircraft as deeply as I could into forever. I'm Gary Sinise, and this was my high flight.
Thank you so much.
There will be a time on Wednesday when you're the highest person on Earth.
Congratulations on that. Yeah. You got it. That'll be good for the wall. How are you? I'm Gary. Thank you.
We gathered to celebrate a life of relentless evil. And though I gave you a quick death, it was not mercy. It was Ortho Ground Clear Weed and Grass Killer.
Kill 'em all! Ortho Ground Clear kills really fast and for organic gardening. Speed you can trust.
So he comes back in a few minutes with a guy about his age, same size. He says, now this is the camp commander. And I said to myself, oh yeah, this was Saturday morning. I said, oh yeah, these guys were out drinking beer last night. They said, oh, we're going to have some fun with a new guy. He asked, will you write your autobiography? I said, nope. He talked in Vietnamese. He says, he asked you one last time? I said, no. He talked to me. He says, he orders you to write your autobiography. I said, I take my orders from the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force. He talked a little more in Vietnamese, and he says, one more time? I shook my head. And the camp commander looks up in very good English and says, you will be very sorry. Got up and walked out. 2 or 3 minutes later, this big guy comes in, biggest Vietnamese I saw. And they put me on the ground, pulled my arms back up behind me. I couldn't do it again. My life depended on it. My palms were together behind my neck. I could scratch my neck. And they put Vietnamese handcuffs right there. And they walked out. And I thought, this ain't a big deal. About 5 minutes later, my hands were numb, my arms were numb, and shortly my shoulders were numb, and pretty soon my chest was numb. And it proved, for me at least, the whole point was, we can make you do it. What that sergeant had said. We'll show you that we run this camp. You'll do what we tell you to do. Then that night, when you were asking, this was really my low point. When I ate that meal and realized that I had been broken. And so I went over and leaned up against a wall, just slumped down, and there was one light way over in the corner. And I looked up, and it just kept attracting my attention. And I remember thinking it was like Moses in the burning bush, I guess. And I sat there and I looked at the light. And whether it was a split second or an hour, I can't tell you. But I had an experience of something happened to me, and it was all over. I feel very comfortable, very secure. You're going to live, you're going to get out of this, and you'll go home someday.
What do you love the most about the air races? Camaraderie. Everybody is friends, everybody helps each other, and we're all very professional and have a great time.
Some say we're crazy. I'd put it more, we have a deep affliction and a commitment to the skills and the practice of aviation, and we love it.
Came for the airplanes and the races, but we keep coming back for the family.
The Section 3 people were just all over me, wanting me to autograph every part of their body, and it was great. I love Section 3.
If you like P-51s, if you like Warbirds, you like jets, you just like tinkering with airplanes, this is the place.
What's the best part about the air races?
Everything. It's the people that makes it unique.
Whole lot of love.
Whole lot of love.
Whole lot of love.
Whole lot of love.
Control, Sport Gold takes about 3 minutes from the start.
Sport Gold flight race control, cleared onto the course.
Copy, cleared on the course.
230 at 17, gust 27, break.
Nice job, guys. Everybody lining it up. Looking perfect. Everybody hold what you got.
Bar none, this is the fastest motorsport in the world.
Race planes, race aircraft. Gentlemen, you're looking good. Gentlemen, you have a race.
And it looks like it might be Wee Willie. That would be Robbie Patterson, followed by Sweet and